So here we are, another season in which the Miami Heat are the 8th seed going up against a championship favorite in the first round of the playoffs. And here we are in another year with the Miami Heat as the 8th seed, giving that championship favorite problems in their first round matchup. More specifically, the Boston Celtics, who have been struggling with this team for the last 5 seasons. And this time, the Heat don't even have Jimmy Butler. And yet still, after being 14-point underdogs coming into game 2, the Miami Heat do what they always seem to do, just every single playoff run at this point, and they found a way to get it done. Now, admittedly, I wasn't really paying attention to this series up until now because, I mean, it's the Boston Celtics who had their incredible regular season, set all kinds of records, actually set the record for best offensive rating in NBA history, although that's not really saying much at this point. Every team in the NBA now is basically competing for that title, but they have an incredible offense even compared to the rest of the league, incredible defense with the addition of guys like Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and overall just a really good team, and for a lot of people, the only team they believe can challenge the Denver Nuggets for the NBA title. So how do we get here? Game 1 went about how we expected this entire series to go, Miami just being outmatched in basically every aspect of the game, and they would be blown out. But in game 2, there were a lot of things that were noteworthy. Starting off with just the Heat in general. They came out way more aggressive and way more decisive by the looks of it. It seemed like they made an emphasis on just taking any open shot that they were getting. One of the main reasons that they ended up winning this game was the amount of shots that they made from the three-point line. The Miami Heat were 23 for 43 on three-pointers, which comes out to 53.5%. And to put that into perspective, the Miami Heat throughout the regular season were an average to a little bit above average three-point shooting team. They were 18th in the league in attempts per game and 12th in overall three-point percentage at 37%. However, their hot shooting could be attributed to just everybody getting hot, but it's also attributed to the Celtics game plan, which I'll go into more detail on later. In terms of what the Heat were doing on defense, it was pretty clear that they were going to do whatever it took to try to take away the Celtics three-point shooting. The Celtics this season were first in makes, attempts, and second in percentage, trailing the OKC Thunder by 0.1% at 38.8. And so the Heat made it an emphasis to try to take those shots away as much as humanly possible, and that's exactly what they were doing while also trying to take away the rest of the team. It seemed like the Heat were content on just having Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum do whatever they wanted in isolation. They did go to a zone in around the second quarter, but it seemed like they were mostly content to just play straight up and just let them work in isolation, as I said before. It shows up in the stat sheet. Jason Tatum had 28 points, 8 rebounds, shot 50% from the field, 10 for 20. Jaylen Brown, 33 points, 13 for 23. He really got it going towards the end of the second quarter, but everybody else on the team, Sam Hauser had 6 points, Al Horford 6 points, Peyton Pritchard didn't attempt a shot even though he played 20 minutes, Jrue Holiday had 9, Derek White 13, and Kristaps Porzingis 6 points, 1 for 9 from the field. Basically what they were doing with him was they were just trying to be as physical with him as possible. A lot of people at this point know that Kristaps Porzingis kind of shies away from contact. They had Caleb Martin on him on some plays, and he was actually moving him off of his shots during his post touches and just making things a little bit more difficult for him. Like, there were some shots that he took that just didn't look comfortable at all. He had a play where he had the ball in the post against Tyler Hero and he was able to back him down, but he just missed the jump hook. And so it was Miami's defense combined with him just missing shots that he usually makes, but they still definitely made it as difficult as possible for him. It didn't look like he really was comfortable the entire night, even when he was open. As for the Celtics as a whole, I talked about the fact that Miami tried to take away the threes. Boston shot 32 threes, but it still felt like they were just chucking, even when they didn't really need to. Boston is one of the most spaced out teams that we've ever seen. There will be a lot of plays throughout a game where they literally have all 5 of their players outside the three-point line, just because that's the type of offense and the type of sets that they can run. But they do get into the habit of, and we've seen this a lot throughout the regular season, where they just take shots and become over-reliant on the three-pointer. And we saw this throughout the game. They took a lot of contested threes. There was a play that I'm thinking of specifically. Jason Tatum was isoing on the left wing, and Caleb Martin actually came over to help from the weak side, and he still took the three over 2 defenders with 12 on the shot clock. Like, they get into this mode mode where they just think that they can shoot their way out of it because they have this insane 3-point shooting team. But when those shots aren't falling, it looks really bad. As for Miami on offense, Caleb Martin turned into Kobe again. I don't know what it is about him playing the Miami Heat, but he just like sees red whenever he sees this team. Game 1, he didn't have a great game, but tonight he had an incredible bounce back game. Caleb Martin had 21 points, 5 for 6 from 3, which by the way, this game 2, 21 points. This is his first time scoring 21 or more points since December. Like, I don't understand what happens to him when he sees the Boston Celtics. This is just the reality of the situation now, I guess. Bam Adebayo had an incredible game, 21 points, 10 rebounds, and a lot of his shots, even though he only made 9 shots, it felt like 15 just because of how easy he was making it look. Pretty much whenever they were actually able to get Bam Adebayo a paint touch, he was making something happen, which actually was pretty rare for the Heat, especially in the first half. They really couldn't get inside the 3-point line at all. Of their 18 field goal makes in the first half, 13 of those were threes, which brings me back to the Celtics defensive strategy, which also brings me to Tyler Hero, who had 24 points and 14 assists. It feels like he was much more decisive in this game compared to game 1. Those 14 assists, a lot of those came because the Celtics were trying to basically trap him on the ball screens so that he couldn't really get his shot off coming off of the pick. And the result of that was dudes being left wide open. If he was able to get downhill, somebody had to help. That leaves a shooter open. And that's how they were getting a lot of their 3-point looks. And even then, it still looked like, at least on some plays, that the Celtics were content with letting the Heat just shoot. It seemed like they were way more focused on protecting the paint, which they did do a good job of, as I mentioned before, but maybe focused too much on trying to do that. Because, I mean, even though Miami was an average 3-point shooting team in the regular season, if you give NBA players and competent shooters that amount of good looks from 3, they're gonna make them. As someone that is a fan of a team that gives up a crazy amount of open threes every single game because of overhelping, trust me, I know. And that's how you end up with the Miami Heat team that hits a franchise record 23 threes in a playoff game. And so now, in what a lot of people thought would be a sweep, the series is going back to Miami, tied 1-1. Now, I still don't think that the Eric Spoelstra black magic can last them the entire series. Boston is going to win the series, but the question then becomes, how difficult is this actually going to be? And I feel like the answer for a lot of people at this point is that it's going to be a lot more interesting than a bunch of us had previously thought. And I feel like Spoelstra and the Miami Heat roster in general is basically just telling us once again to stop counting them out even when they're insanely undermanned. The Heat don't have Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier, and the Celtics lost home court. I don't understand what is going on. I don't know what they have going on down there in South Beach. Every year, I saw a Heat fan actually talk about this on a video before I started recording. Every year they come into the playoffs with different role players, and every year they're just finding dudes that are contributing on the highest level. Last year it was Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus. This year it's Haywood Highsmith, DeLon Wright at some points. Jaime Jaquez was incredible this game, especially from the 3-point line, not necessarily from the field. Nikola Jovic was great, minus the turnovers. Like, I don't know. I do still have the Celtics winning the series, but it's going to be tougher than a lot of us thought. We're going to have to see what kind of adjustments the Celtics make in game 3, but this definitely showed that no matter what the situation is, you can't just count this Miami Heat team out. I don't know what else to say. Another team that you can't really give up on no matter what's happening in the game is the Denver Nuggets, the defending champions. I made a video a couple days ago talking about their comeback in game 2 against the Lakers. So if you're interested, you can watch that right here. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.